This is not a genuine servant of Ya'OH, my dear Paa Kow. Take one. Hello, we are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and this is part 2 about the man and Ya'OH. We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and we are looking extensively at this man and his claims, statements, etc. to verify if they indeed are fact, established facts, by seeing if they synchronize and are therefore established facts. That the evidence presented proves itself evident, and the writings of this man are irrefutable and therefore deemed infallible. For there are many things he claims, of which he, like Dr.Ray Hagins, is aiming, as it seems, to tear down Christianity by stating that the biblical Paul is a deviant, deceitful, etc., and other such claims. And this man here, the writer, aka the servant of Ya'OH, or Ya'OH, states that a very dedicated and loyal reader of his articles here in this column of his is on the modern Ghana internet site recently sent him this is a few years back, a YouTube link of a video titled Ray Hagins, The False Teachings of the Apostle Paul, desiring of him to watch it because he reads his articles not too long ago in which he accused Paul of, or he read his article not too long ago in which he accused Paul of plagiarizing Greek philosophers in the epistles of he wrote to Christians of his day, the letters, etc., in the books. This video was made by a certain popular black American preacher and academician by the name Dr.Ray Hagins, and goes by the internet link. There it is there. Yes, we know about this Dr.Ray Hagins. He apparently was an evangelist for about 30 years in the Christian faith, and he met some people that says something about suggested him the ancient Egyptian. He thought about it, and then he realized, probably through personal research, study, etc., that it was all true. In his mind, it was all true. So he converted to the Kemetic faith, or the Egyptian belief system, right? And at some point, the black community turned on him because they reckon he was an informant in was it Michael Brown case or something like that. And he states his reader friend, who is of the Fante ethnic grouping of Ghana, must be some tribe there, is called Paa Kow and is currently domiciled overseas in Western Europe. Surprisingly but happily though, his friend's full name shows no affiliation to any Anderson, Blankson, Crookson, Cromwell, Crowell, Cowell, Masons, not to think about all the free ones that may be in someone's mind, Pamford, Sanders, etc., all of which are typical European family names but are also common among Fante people who live in some of the coastal parts of Ghana. In this regard, he prays that his Fante compatriots who have such European names for their surnames did not acquire them through a mingling of blood lineages, or mixed blood, right, being hybrids, or in ancestral relationships with people of low melanin skin complexion. So that there could be referring to Europeans. Okay, would that be deemed racist? People of low, no, probably not. They just got no, they got low or no melanin skin complexion. Okay. So for any mingling of racial blood is strictly forbidden by the Thorah. This is probably a play on the Jewish Torah, which we got told we know nothing about. But don't underestimate the little guy, because we may go and research this in its entirety. It's not an easy task because according to Jews, etc., you've got to go for all these different scrolls and this and that. Could be a blocker or could be just coincidental. We'll figure that out if that's correct when we read the Torah. We tried to find this Thorah, but couldn't find it online, so we're guessing it's a play on the word Torah. It's just added a letter, the letter H. And therefore all marital or sexual intercourses between Europeans and Negro people are deemed unholy before YA'OH, and any resultant births of children through such unions are thus eternally cursed. Okay, that's his claim. Dr. Hagins is a bespectacled fellow, he wears glasses, who sports quite a hefty frame, he's quite a big guy, or build for a body depicting him as an unmistakably good living African American. Yeah, he probably eats well, he's quite a big buff guy, and is always dressed in Western fashion apparel such as suits, right? He's in suits and a tie, such as are known to be worn by pastors and other clergymen of Christianity. Furthermore, his own self-made signature facial features display only a small thin crop of hair on the lower part of his chin, showing neither a clearly visible full moustache nor any sideburns at all. Maybe he doesn't grow that, maybe he can't grow moustache or sideburns. And display a perfect skin head for a head. Thus, only a little fraction of all the facial hairs which his maker would have him show him, if ever permitted in his presence, is all what he has in exhibit in situ, whatever that means. So he's basically saying, well, if he doesn't have a beard and a mustache or the natural hair that grows and he cuts it off, then there's something wrong there. So then, before he could listen to his preaching in his video, he had to size him up spiritually based on the dictates of the Torah with regards to his appearance, so he may determine whether he may at any time, this is Dr. Ray Hagins, pass the personality test which all true and genuine servants of YA'OH must pass before ever being put on any assignment by him. Okay, so if he doesn't follow what his particular book says, well then he hasn't got the qualifications. Okay. He hasn't got what it takes, or what it says you must have. Doing this, he found this preacher man looked just too ordinary. His facial characteristics seemed cast in the same mould as the other 95 or men or more out of every 100 men he sees living on earth today, simply because they, and this preacher included, play around with their facial hairs and thus alter the facial outlooks that are determined for mature men and thus given to them by the Creator. So you have to have beard, whatever hair, facial hair, whatever grows on your face, back, arms, legs, etc. Even your nose hairs, if that's what you're supposed to, you've been given, and you're supposed to let it grow. That's basically what he's saying, according to this Torah. You can't snip it, trim it, whatever, right? So you could have nose hairs like stalagmites, or the other one, and you wouldn't be allowed to cut it. Sounds very Rastafarian, but I don't think they're that silly and, you know, grow their nose hairs and then braid them into dreadlocks. Yeah, use some logic and common sense. Okay. If it's getting in the way of you eating or drinking something, or you continually have food in your bed and there's a nest of flies or whatever, in there, well, something wrong there, right? You got to trim it. Sometimes it just grows over, gets annoying, irritating. Yeah, so use common sense, logic and common sense. Trim it now and again. Sometimes it's offensive to other people, right? So they suggest, you should trim your nose hairs, you should trim your ear hairs, your back hairs, etc. Okay, so then he says, doing this, he found this preacher man looked just too ordinary. His facial characteristics seemed cast in the same mould as the over 95 men or more out of every 100 men he sees living on earth today, simply because they, and this preacher included, play around with their facial hairs and thus alter the facial outlooks that are determined for mature men and thus given to them by the Creator. So no styling, no trimming, etc., etc. It's not allowed. And so this preacher did not meet the requirements regarding facial appearances which every servant of YA'OH or YA'OH must have, and is also compelled to visibly display at all times in order to qualify to stand before him. You see, genuine and true servants of Ya'Oh are very rare people today, even by their physical looks alone, which must be Thorah compliant. There you go, there's that book again. The rules at all times, and therefore they form a very small number of only men on earth. For there are no women involved in the rendering of services to Ya'Oh. Okay. He will be expiating a little more on this fact, or he expatiates a little more on this fact of a men only service to Ya'Oh before he concludes this writing of this article, so readers should just bear with him with this for now. After he had subjected this preacher to a physical body check based on the Thorah, he then started to listen attentively to the words of his teaching in order to determine if they fell in line with what Ya'Oh commands for all his people to believe and live by. This is according to this guy and this book, right? If they don't meet the requirements, etc., etc. But of course, this preacher and his YouTube videos are not new to him. Weren't new to him, and so he was ready to write back to his friend Paa Kow after watching the video of the particular link he sent him. Here then is his letter to Paa Kow, which he is making open to all by its publication on this site to enable readers of his column to also read it. It gets some attention, doesn't it? My dear Paa Kow, thank you for the YouTube video link you recently sent me, desiring that I watch, or that he watch and listen to a certain preacher, pro or anti, of the Bible by name Ray Hagins. He must say it is an interesting video and contains some important ideas relating to the English Bible and Christianity, which come from a man whose teachings and himself are not new to him, to this writer. Anyway, in this particular video, this man says he was born into Christianity and grew up to mature in the faith to later on become a pastor of the church after graduating from Bible school, and that he holds many academic degrees relating to religion and other disciplines of study. Yet Ray Hagins did about 30 years, and then he had a realization through others that it was all false, and he clung to the ancient Egyptian or Kemetic faith. By his teaching in the video, he claims to have now seen the good light, and therefore had quit church and Christianity for good many years ago. This writer could not have agreed more with his decision to quit Christianity, since Christianity is such a horrendous evil, this is his opinion, that is soon to die, and thus will kill all who may be found within it when it eventually dies. Okay, so when it starts to fade out and die, then those who are within it, seeing it dying or about to die, will kill everybody else. But then this writer wonders where he was headed after leaving Christianity, Dr. Ray Hagins, or if he rather jumped out of a frying pan only to drop right into the fires by getting into the Kemetic religion. My dear Paa Kow, this writer states he could sense only that this preacher man was deep down to the marrow of his bones very abhorrent of Christianity. In other words, he hated it, detested it, maybe just as much as this writer is. For who will not be angered by the naked and wicked deception of Christianity when one comes face to face with the truth of the Most High One? Yeah, but this is what you can't blame people because it's something that the powers that be possibly corrupted, messed with since the beginning of the translations from the one source through these different scribes of that source and so forth, along with their corruptions and lies. Right? You can't blame the people who read it because they put their trust in these ancients that have supposedly translated it from the original Hebrew or Greek into English throughout the centuries. And in these Bible societies that pump them out in biblical format, or Bibles, and they read them and they're taught by their church evangelists, pastors, reverends, etc. what it actually says, because they can't make head or tail of it, even though it's in English and in black and white in English. They just don't get it, okay, and so forth. Basically, in some, they've been convinced by their church leaders this is what it says, this is what it means, and this is what you should parrot. The preacher man's in-depth knowledge of Christianity is taught in the New Testament of the English Bible, born out of his experience as a clergyman in church, enables him to reveal both Christianity and the Apostle Paul, who is Christianity's main kingpin, as fake, tearing them into smithereens. Convincingly. For if there be no Paul, there can be no Christianity, and if there be no Christianity, there can be no Paul either. So then, if one is able to kill or discredit anything of either of the two, then the whole composite structure or belief system they hold jointly will crumble down. Yeah. If there's no God, there's no Christ. If you can prove that there's no God, that there's no Christ, and there's no Paul, that's all made up, then there can be no Christianity. And it will, the whole composite structure or belief system they hold jointly will crumble down, as he states. For this writer, he would have chosen to kill Paul outright in order that no one would ever have thought of him to ever have existed, as to have even brought into being whatever the world has come to know as Christianity today. What this writer means is that he would have proven beyond doubt that the character called Paul, as revealed in the English Bible, was unfit to be used by YA'OH for any work in his kingdom, and thus was too irrelevant to his will as to have been part of creation at all. This is simply so because Paul was born through the mingling of blood between a heathen mother who was a Roman and a father who is said to have been of the tribe of Benjamin of YA'OH Sharal, Israel, an act which is eternally forbidden by the Thorah, and thus Paul was never qualified in his birth to be fit or eligible for service to YA'OH. So you would have to go do your own personal research on this through the scriptures, etc., and prove that this guy is right or this guy is wrong. However, this YouTube video preacher chose to go the way of discrediting the works or writings of Paul, and to thus render Christianity as bunkum, which also works, since at times the end justifies the means. For this writer can understand that in this manner of attack against Paul by this preacher, Ray Hagins, therein lies or exists his strength as an academician of doctorate degree standing, and thus one who is very skilled in logic and philosophy to aid him win a debate. Well, at the end of all his critique of Paul, Dr. Hagins surmised that Paul was never born at all, but was only a fictitious character who was crafted towards the invention of Christianity. He went further to say that even other Bible characters, like Paul, is also a fabrication and an invention by men and never existed historically, all of which thus led him to conclude that the entire English Bible is a concoction by men. That is to say, it is something that has been cooked up from nowhere by men, and parenthesis, brackets, okay, because he's not too sure if he said and demons. He indicated his belief in the Ark, the Egyptian sign of life, of ancient Mitzrayim, or Egypt, and in this particular video under reference, Dr. Hagins openly displays and zealously advertises this sign on the breast pocket of his shirt, and others too, on his coat lapels, on pulpits, and cloth designs used to drape pulpits, etc., and therefore must have obtained his wisdom and energy for what he teaches by a knowledge and strong faith in Egyptology. This knowledge he may have gathered through the reading of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, a basic handbook for the area of this area of study. Then also he mentions the Mahat of Hindus as one of his inspirations in the same video. Okay, he's probably talking about Ma'at. It's probably nothing to do with the Hindus. It might be something completely different. Or the Egyptians supposedly travelled through India and taught them their religion, their philosophy, etc. And then Indians adopted it, Indian adapted it. That's possibly what it is historically, but again you have to go do your personal research. Ask someone that's into the Kemetic religion, be it Shaka Amos or Reggie or whoever, on the House of Consciousness, sə-jə-nâr's House of Consciousness, and they will put you right. Okay, so he mentions the Mahat of Hindus as one of his inspirations. You'd have to have a look at that video to see if he did, in the same video. Furthermore, he even claims that the entire Thorah of YA'OH, which came through Masha, or Moses, to the House of Ya'Ih Sharal, was plagiarized from some 147 verses of the Mahat. Oh my, all these make it obvious to whom Dr. Hagins owes any loyalty and dedication of service. Obviously then, Dr. Hagins is completely ignorant about the Thorah of YA'OH, having not really studied it, and this fact alone gives him away as not being in the service of YA'OH by the work he does. For this instruction and lifestyle of the Thorah must always be lived to perfection by anyone who YA'OH has ever called or would ever call into a service. So all these people out there, Christians, etc., that says they've been called by God, chosen by God, according to this guy, you haven't. Because you're not following this Torah, or this Thorah that he's talking about. This explains why all true and genuine servants of YA'OH can only be and have always been of the House of Ya'ih Sharal alone, and of no other, since the Thorah is the very life and blood of the house of Abraham. Abraham? Father? Ram? Okay, if father is Ab, according to this guy, in the Hebrew, or the his rendition of the Hebrew, what he claims to be the Hebrew, aka the House of Ya'ih Sharal, which Thorah constantly keeps its loyalists holy and clean as the children of Ya'OH, so as to be worthy to render service to him. You see, the Thorah is the very life and wisdom of Ya'OH, which he gives to man. Anyone who lives the Thorah life gains holy spiritual power and energy to understand the ways of YA'OH as revealed in the Tanakh, the Old Testament of Christians. Anyone without the light of the Thorah in him is simply a fool and a clown to YA'OH. So that's what he considers you, Jews without the true light of the Thorah, or the Torah, if that's what he's referring to. He's just added an H, right, an extra letter. Okay. Anyone else, Messianic Jews, if you're not following it according to that and his dictate, which he claims is the book's dictate, then you are a fool or a clown. With the light of the Thorah abiding in any true and genuine son of Ya'ih Sharal, who is also a servant of YA'OH, the one who would be ordered and inspired by many accounts of you in the English Bible, not to talk about those of the Tanakh, it would never come to the wrong conclusion that the Bible narratives are all entirely the fabrication of men who had the means of controlling information flow in the world, as this preacher in this video has said over and over again. Because if it's true what this Dr. Hagins says, that's entirely concocted and made up by men, then this guy is just speaking a lot of rubbish, right? He's lying. Okay? Everything he says is false. If it's all like a concocted book, right? Text, etc. Yes, indeed, the English Bible has lots of errors and outright deceptions in it. Yeah, contradictions, errors, editings, deliberate editings, etc., etc. And so has become a very problematic book, most of which have come through years of handling by unholy translators and theologians, some of whom were so evil-minded as to forge evil into their works, just so they may derail the plans of YA'OH for mankind's well-being. However, if indeed the original text of the English Bible was Gabaray Hebrew, as it is now known by many to have been, and thus delivered to only the children of the House of Ya'ih Sharal, as the word of instruction of YA'OH to them and their descendants, and for all mankind too. Okay, it's something not right here, because earlier he was saying it's exclusive to those of that House of Ya'ih Sharal. No mixed bloods, no mixed races, yeah, no one of a different blood, just that certain peoples, chosen peoples. Okay, so no amount of willful distortions in its translations from Gabare into any other language would be able to kill its input and meaning entirely. Then what about its sister language, if it's the Hebrew? The original ancient, very old Hebrew, not this modern Israeli Hebrew, or known as the Ketav Ivri, the sister language of the Aramaic, the Assyrian Aramaic, or the Syrian Aramaic, or the Shana Atika, which is from the Ketav Asherit. What about that? Okay, which was often referred to as the Aramaic Hebrew. This is probably way before Paleo Hebrew, because all went down in Mesopotamia. Okay. All starting from there, where Abraham was actually born in the year of Chaldea, or Chaldee, okay, which is part of Mesopotamia. For translators to be able to kill the meaning of the word of Ya'oh in Gabare by the translations, it would seem to me, or to this writer, that they had succeeded in stopping Ya'oh in his tracks concerning what he planned for the good of mankind and giving him his words of instructions in Gabare. This is probably Ghanaian Hebrew, right? Yeah, it's probably what he's referring to. African Hebrew, or that it originated from Africa, possibly. Okay, that's why it's called Gabare. This is Ghanaian, right? Hebrew. That's what he's talking about, possibly. And so for Dr. Hagins to claim that all the events, names of persons, places, times in which events took place, and the entire historical record of the English Bible are all mere fabrications that never happened but have been made up through the intelligence and connivance of some men in order to deceive all mankind, is to this writer simply balderdash. Yeah, because if it proves true, then this guy's statements, claims, etc. are rubbish. Right? Just a lot of fluff. So that's why he's saying that. Yes, it is true that the names and titles of people, feast names of Ya'oh, names of places in the English Bible are not exactly as they pertained in the years they are said to have been recorded in, during the days when Gabare, aka Lashawan Kadash, holy tongue of Ya'oh. If that's the holy tongue of God, then what is the Lishana Atika? Yeah. Was still spoken on earth by the House of Ya'Ih Sharal. However, it is just too simplistic for anyone to suggest that the entire narrative of the Bible is man-made and man-inspired. Again, because if it's proven that it is, all that he states and claims is total bogus. If Dr. Hagins sees the promises that are made to people in the Bible and the fulfillment of same as all being man-made and man-powered, or that they never even ever occurred at all, thus leading him to teach that the entire English Bible is made up by some men, parenthesis, super me, so parenthesis brackets, he's not too sure if that's what he's referring to, in order to deceive the broader majority of people, then he will have a lot of work to do to convince some of us. Even if all the history books relating to the English Bible are also all wrong and can be proven to have been made up together with everything in the English Bible, how about the archaeological records, which are the way Ya'oh preserved the events and happenings of the era in the lands the English Bible talks about? This writer thinks the stance of Dr. Hagins about the Bible puts him far off the truth. Well, archaeological records have been known to be falsified, messed with. The chronological timetable out by 100 to 300 years, because these Christians archaeologists that were doing the research out in the field wanted a matching answer to the biblical scriptures, so they just said, oh yeah, that fits, yeah, okay, twist that a little bit, yeah, that fits, okay. And yeah, the chronological timetable was found to be 100 to 300 years too far ahead right? And hence they got the name of the Pharaoh of the Exodus is Ramses, when he actually wasn't, according to this archaeologist that did the research. It was somebody else, probably Ahmose the first. You see, the only man who can be chosen as a servant of Yah, or as Dr. Hagins wrongly claims to be, he's actually saying that he's of the Kemetic faith. So if this guy's one is of Yah, or of the Gabaray or Hebrew faith, then this guy has put a statement, an incorrect statement here. Okay, he hasn't understood the video and what Dr. Hagins has been saying and claims to believe in. Okay, you might not be able to generate all of that information from just watching one video. Okay, so he says, you see, the only man who can be chosen as a servant of Yah, or as Dr. Hagins wrongly claims to be, is one who has lived the Thorah lifestyle according to its strictest orders and can say, I have tried it and tested it and trusted it, and so I know it's true. Okay, so we may look at that ourselves. That's why we're trying to find this Thorah, which we think is the Torah. He's just added an extra letter, right? It's probably the Torah, but you could read the Jewish one and say, well, that's not the correct one, only I have the correct one. You see, that's how they play those games sometimes. This writer states he can confidently say that if Dr. Hagins had lived according to the perfect lifestyle of the Torah, he would not have had such problems with his eyesight as to be bespectacled at his age. You see that Thorah commands that blind people and anyone with a blemish in his body should never come into the presence of Yah, or even if they are of the house of Aaron. He puts a couple of question marks here. Is that what it means? Because he's not well versed in the Hebrew. He admits it. So he studied Paleo-Hebrew. Ha-Kanaim, the priests. Okay. So yes, Scripture does say anyone with a blemish in his body should never come into the presence of God, right? Into the holy tabernacle, etc., etc. But blind people, yeah, it's possibly, and that they shouldn't have these spectacles or eye problem, to help with their eye problems, or etc., etc. So he shouldn't have such problems with his eyesight as to be bespectacled or wear glasses at his age. Okay, it's just a bodily age thing that happens, right? Okay, but if you have a look in the Bible, in the Old Testament, you'll find that was it Jacob? His eyes were growing dim because he was getting old, right? And he's lying on his bed and he couldn't see who was in front of him, right? Which was Isaac, covered in fur, pretending to be his brother Esau, to take his birthright. Okay. So is there a problem there? Because it doesn't indicate in that scripture that he got up and went to some holy tent or anything like that. Okay. What's the other one? In the New Testament, where is it Elizabeth, who was pregnant and she met Mary? I think she might have been pregnant with John the Baptist or something. Her husband actually was struck blind, but was he banished from the temple? He couldn't go in there. Okay, so maybe he's speaking about the Holy of Holies, where those priests were, right? So if a high priest come up with a disease or a skin blemish or something, or he went blind, he can't go in there. Maybe he's talking about that. And in this, one is blind if it is only an artificial or man-made thing developed by someone who may not even be known to be holy, that keeps one from being declared as blind. People like Masha are recorded to have lived to 120 years without his eyes becoming dim. This is the power in the Thorah lifestyle and for being a genuine servant to Yah, and yet Dr. Hagin is below the age of 60. But what this guy's got to realise is that in those ancient days, there's like shorter months, right? They may have had 10 months, and these Hebrews may have had 10 months in a year, consisting of 29 to 30 days. Okay, let's say 28 to 30 days. Okay, because some people say, oh no, they had 28. Well, we actually did the research and found that their month consisted of 29 days and one extra if they didn't see the crescent moon on the 29th. Okay, so we're very wary about that one. My dear Paa Kow, this writer says he can also say that the manner and style in which Dr. Hagins presents himself and emphasizes his wares to his audience also give him away as not being a servant of Ya'Oh, and there is therefore not one who was sent with his truths to teach and warn mankind of danger. Yeah, because he says Dr. Hagins is simply an entertainer and in fact a joker, and does not carry himself as a serious teacher of any sacred messages he has received from Ya'Oh. He enjoys himself by cracking jokes, teasing and ridiculing others, and having his audience engage in hysterical laughing and clapping of their hands just to urge him on. Well, he needs to understand that when you're giving public lectures, etc., it can become monotonous. If your voice is monotonous, it can become boring, tedious, people just fall off to sleep, right? So you got to have a technique that keeps them listening, okay? And that's what that is. Okay, every now and then you got to add a bit of a joke, you know, as long as it's not a joke against God, you know, or accusations, or or blasphemy. You're allowed to add a bit of humour. I'm not too sure about ridiculing others. It's satirical. It's like comedians, right? And so forth. Which serious servant of Ya'Oh will present himself and his message, which he claims to have been given by him in such an easygoing style? Well, if it's serious, you be serious about it, right? Yeah. Be serious if it's a serious message. Dr. Hagins seems to be still attached to the joys, fame and chappies of pulpit life of the church world, which he now claims to abhor or dislike and has detached himself from. However, at the end of the day, the effect of what service he claims to render to his audience is just the same as all Christian clergymen do for their followers, which in effect is tickling the ears of their congregants with what these same congregants want to hear or be told, so they may be entertained to laugh their hearts out. Whither do we go with this kind of sensual entertainment? Well, the sermon's got to be enjoyable. Nobody wants to go there and hear a 2-hour blah blah blah, boring, monotonous. You know, they'll start falling asleep. They'll go, oh, I'd rather be doing something else. So you're trying to focus their mind on you, alright, to pay full attention. Yeah? It's just mere techniques, that's all it is. And he goes on to say, my dear Paa Kow, it must be told that whatever African American descent that Dr. Hagins belongs to, and which makes him think that he has been chosen to be a servant of Ya'Oh, is not being a heathen of Caucasian descent, is rather what disqualifies him entirely from ever being called into a holy service of Ya'Oh. So there you go. There it is. Right? Exclusion, seclusion, segregation. Right? If you have European blood, they see it as anti-Torah, etc., etc. So there is the bias, there is possible subtle racism, right? That it's only an elite lot, right? It's not for all mankind. Read between the lines. You see, the Negroes who were shipped to the so-called New World as slaves who were bought and paid for. This is his statement, his belief, through his research apparently. And so even though it is now known that they were mostly out of the House of Ya'Ih Sharal, so it's saying that they came from Africa, right, and they were mostly of the House of Ya'Ih Sharal, or wherever, they came from, and thus had aforetime belonged to Ya'OH. They were taken out of the hands of Ya'OH to become the properties of the Europeans, who purchased them, and this in fact the only true curse in the life of anyone slipping away from Ya'OH. Remember the accounts in Tabal-YA'OH. So he's changed the name again, right? Is that actually Hebrew? Tabal-YA'OH was it in his language? Ghanaian. Deuteronomy 28. He's not too sure if that's what that actually means, because again, he's not fluent in Hebrew. He admitted that. Okay. Deuteronomy 28, which foretells of the House of Ya'Ih Sharal being shipped to strange lands to serve as slaves. Also, that said that once they were sold out into slavery, they would never have anyone to redeem them, as in a kinsman redeemer, simply because they were willingly sold out themselves, and not that they were captured in a war situation into slavery by any unknown conquerors. So he needs to do his research again to find out if the Nigerians or the Niger, right, were confronted by European slave traders. They sold out their own people. They showed them where these people were, and that's how they got hold of them. So these Niger or Nigerians sold out their own people, Nigerians or whoever. They told the European where they were and how to get to them. Okay, but if you know of the video statement of 3 top American professors or teachers, okay, of the US education system, they said it's all wrong, that the black man was actually a ruler who was living in the Americas, before the European came, right? But the Indians, the native Indians who wandered in there, fought against them and eventually killed them off, a lot of them off, right? And these people were possibly the Moors. Yeah. These people were known as the Moors, and they were rounded up and taken to Africa to breed with the Africans there, and then they were brought back and sold as slaves. Also, supposedly, they got hold of the Aborigines, and some of them married, and did the same thing to them. Made them, sold them as slaves. Yeah, this guy really needs to go deeper into history to find those kind of facts. Yeah. These are some things that people don't realise. You've been duped. This is what these 3 professors said, that those in the American education system have been fooled into believing that slavery started from these European slavers bringing them to America when they were already there. They wanted them out of the country because once they conquered it, you know, it was all their way. So they had to remove them, capture them and remove them, and decided, well, we'll put them on ships, take them over there, interbreed them with them. Yeah. It's like a business. You interbreed, yeah, those that you're enslaving, so that produce more. It's like growing corn, right? You plant lots and lots and lots of corn, so you have plenty of lots and lots of corn, right? Or plenty of corn. Okay, you never be without corn. Okay. If you need more corn, you grow more corn. It's as simple as that, if you could use that analogy. Yeah. So they breed them over there and then bring them back. Okay. Oh, business is good. We're making lots of money. Quick. We need some more. Okay, there's plenty more there, because they're interbreeding. We'll grab those, take them over there. Well, business is doing well, making lots of more money. We need more. Okay, we'll go back. Give us some more. Oh, yeah, plenty more. Oh, more money to be made. It was like that. Okay. These people really need to learn the true histories. Okay, so he says they weren't captured in a war situation into slavery by any known conquerors. So then all who left the shores of West Africa through the Middle Passage in the 400-year-long slave trade went on a journey of no return, and were never to return to the fold of Ya'Ih Sharal, or back into the hands of Ya'Ih, period. So, okay, you Hebrew Israelites out there, what he's saying is, because you're of mixed blood, you are not eligible to be part of this Ya'OH Sharal because you have that mixed blood. Okay, he says it in this article. So then none of the descendants of those who were sold into slavery by their own kind will ever be found within the House of Ya'OH Sharal to have any business such as being anointed to teach the way Hadarak of Ya'OH. And my dear Paa Kow, as you already know, Hadarak, the way, is only known and walked by people who are of the House of Ya'OH Sharal and thus bear the responsibility to teach it to those of the same house who ever accidentally fall out of the way so they may to return to it. Based on these facts just expressed, and also because of the obvious fact that there can be no true or genuine or pure-blooded descendants of Ya'OH Sharal living in America today, simply because the pure Negro blood that went to sojourn there as slaves has for over 700 years since been mingled with the blood of Europeans and other heathens. Ya'OH cannot have any of these African Americans in the service, and this includes the likes of Dr. Hagins. There you go. Summed it up. Right. Sorry, Hebrew Israelites. Don't even think about getting into that movement because it states it there. Right. The obvious fact that there can be no true or genuine or pure-blooded descendants of Ya'OH Sharal living in America today, simply because the pure Negro blood that went to sojourn there as slaves, or ended up as slaves there, has for over 7 years since been mingled or mixed with the blood of Europeans and other heathens. So Ya'OH, their God, their Hebrew God, Ghanaian Hebrew God, cannot have any of these African Americans in his service, and this includes the likes of Dr. Hagins. Okay, he's the example, because he's of mixed descent, right? Being an American Negro. So sorry about that, you can't get in. Obviously the name African American refers to people of a mixed race. Here it is again. Begotten out of a willful hybridization between Negroes, hybridization between Negroes from Africa who were of the House of Ya'OH Sharal and Caucasians of Europe, or through forced sexual unions of Negro slave women with their white slave masters. There you go again. Okay. You have no entry into that House of Ya'OH Sharal, according to this statement right there. The result is a calculated attempt at polluting the holy seed of the House of Ya'OH Sharal, who bears a Negro skin complexion and will takes it here towards its extinction on earth. Okay. We have done the research, and there is no such thing as a pure race. No one of pure blood. It's a fabrication. It's been proven. Scientific research has proven that there is no pure race. Okay? No pure blood. So that kills that fallacy. And he writes, my dear Paa Kow, note that the departure of the members of the House of Ya'OH Sharal as slaves to the New World was a sign to those who were left behind on the continent, and must be not be thought to mean sign to those who went into this captivity. So it's not for the hybrids, or those those affected by the hybridization between Negroes from Africa, etc., with the Europeans, who were born through forced sexual unions of Negro slave women with their white slave masters. Okay. So then this sign was intended to be a wake-up call for the survivors of the inhumane trafficking of humans to sit up and return to obey the Thorah, instructions that Ya'OH gave their ancestors through his servants Masha. So the only ones that are entitled to this House of Israel, become members of it, are those who were left behind. Okay? Who've never had, mixed blood. Right? They didn't mix with other races. Yeah. That's what it says in this article. His reply to this Paa guy. Right? His words, not mine. Sadly, the remnant of the House of Ya'OH Sharal that survived the transatlantic slave trade has remained lethargic spiritually, in other words, they're dead spiritually to their obligations to the Thorah ever since, only for a kind of stirring of the Rawak, or the spirit, of the dead and forgotten, who did not even survive to enter the so-called New World, NW, through the descendants of the compatriots who arrived in the New World as slaves to begin to call out to the remnant in Africa who are yet to be polluted with the blood and way of life of the Caucasian towards a spiritual revival. Okay, so it sounds like these half-breeds in America, these African Negroes, when they cry out to those in Africa who are supposed to be of pure blood, unpolluted, you will get shooed away, right? You won't be welcomed into that Ya'Ih Sharal, House of Ya'Ih Sharal, okay, because you're of mixed blood. And so the leader who will ultimately ignite the flames of a revival for the House of Ya'Ih Sharal to wake up to the reality of their circumstances will come from Africa, not America, in order for a true son of the House of Ya'Ih Sharal to lead the second Exodus, again out of same Africa, just as Masha did centuries ago, back to the Holy Land towards the fulfillment of end time events. So only them from Africa, right, will go back to the Holy Land, wherever that is, towards the fulfillment of end time events. Okay, the days of the end. Somehow the descendants of Negro slaves in America seem to know this and are thus trying to work their ways back to the continent, back to Africa, if by any means they may be eligible to partake of this return journey when it is due. Okay, so at some point they may say, oh, okay, we change our mind. Okay, you're of mixed blood. Okay, so you're welcome. Right. But up here, in this article, he's basically saying, no, no, no. At this time, no, because you're of mixed blood. You are African American or African European. Okay, it's all there. My dear Paa Kow, in concluding this letter, he says, let's say a little about what things he never does when seeking spiritual fellowship with others, which he also prays you two would never do. Okay, first, he doesn't listen to women preachers, because God never delivered his messages to women. They don't carry holy messages, etc., etc. Okay, he does not listen to any heathen people who preach doctrines of Christianity, so he's totally anti-Christianity, no matter how good-looking or wise-sounding they may be. By heathen, he means everyone who is not of the House of Ya'Ih Sharal and thus does not show the physical characteristics in having woolly textured hair and a Negro black skin complexion. So all those who come at us, the Ministry of the Real Truth, and say blah blah blah, we are of this, sorry, you're actually not. You're just a wannabe, right? Okay, because this leader that you're putting your trust in states in this article, if you're of mixed blood, you're mixed African American or European, white man, you're not welcome. You can't have salvation. It's only the House of Ya'Ih Sharal can. Okay, and the House of Ya'Ih Sharal comprises of only holy peoples of black skin complexion and woolly textured hair. These Africans, okay, not you half-breeds. Sorry about that, but this is what he's saying. So we're trying to stress. Okay, you're being duped, you're being fooled if you think that you're in it. Okay. Thirdly, the writer says he has to be sure that anyone preaching to him who claims to be a servant of Ya'Ih and of the sons of the House of Ya'Ih Sharal has all of his facial hairs visible and in compliance with Torah instruction. Okay, and all of this, he is very much wary of listening to and believing people who he doesn't or can't see, doesn't care, or what's it? Who he doesn't or can't see while they try to teach or preach to him. Yeah, so you have to do it one-on-one, face-to-face. And so, my dear Paa Kow, if you would do as I do and advise you here, you will not be tricked into taking Dr. Hagins serious as a teacher from Ya'Ih to his people, because he's of mixed descent, right? And he's of a different religion, the ancient Kemet. My dear Paa Kow, I will have to end it here with a prayer and hope that this discourse has been beneficial in some way to you in your search for the true messengers of Ya'Ih Sharal. Okay, so he's looking for he says, hopefully this letter has been beneficial in some way, or this instruction to Paa Kow, to you in your search for the true messengers of YA'OH Sharal. Okay? He's a life coach based on this, a Thorah-Based life coach of HaBaYTh Sharal, GH, and author. Okay? So hopefully we've given you insight into this guy and this religion. It sounds very exclusive, secluded, excluding, segregated, biased, and possibly racist to its own kind, and seemingly to the European. Okay? So we're not anti these people or anti these ideas. We just see them as very deceptive, okay? Very exclusive, segregated, etc., etc., according to what he has written to in a letter or on this website, okay, to his inquirer, probably from the same country or Africa, Paa Kow. So if this really opened your eyes to this so-called religious movement, okay, or cult, then that's great. And if you like it, give us a, if you like this video, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments below, and then share this video with all others that you know are influenced by this. They may not realize that there's a special entry requirement. Okay, you can be whatever you like at a distance and not be a part of this, right? You can call yourself this, you can call yourself that, but according to this man, you're not a full member of it unless, and then he lists all the requirements. Okay, so yeah, if you like this video, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments below, and then share it with all your friends who may be falling for this deception, this deceptive cult. Yeah, and then tell your Christian friends, your Jewish friends, Muslim friends, etc. Tell everyone else that you know about it, that you know about this, right? And that we, the Ministry of the Real Truth, who strive to bring you the real truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, we look at these kind of things. We're not here to play games. We're here to look at them, listen to them, go through it, research it if we have to, and then bring you the truth on them. Okay, if it's good, as one that we suggested, but we're still a little bit iffy about, a preacher from Zimbabwe, etc., etc. Then yeah, if it's good, we give you this information, right, after we research it fully, etc., etc. Or if it's like a complete falsity, a complete lie, a cult, something you should watch out for, then we'll give you the heads up on that as well. Okay, so we're the Ministry of the Real Truth, and we are out of here.